needed a tradition that imagined moving towards redemption and freedom and hope. And to hold on to all of those things for me is part of the message of this holiday. And so I wanted to come to this seventh day and study the Song of the Sea. If you want to look at it in your books, it's on page 406, 407. Poetry matters, music matters. And one of the ways that people look at the crossing of the Red Sea is kind of moving through the birth canal. This is the birth of our people. And one of the commentaries I read that built on Rashi said, we left kind of as disparate individuals. And as we walked through that sea, we emerged and we sang this song as a nation. There's some disagreement. Was this done? Moses does a line, the people do a line. By the way, that makes sense. How would they know what to say? Or did we come together in song? And there are different opinions in the Talmud. And the opinion that says we came together in song, and it reflected who we were as a people. As Rashi says, one nation with one heart. I felt that so powerfully this year. We are one nation with one heart. So we feel each other's pain, we celebrate each other's joys. Many commentators compare going through the Sea of Reeds to birth. The Maharal says the word break, baka, is like a pregnant woman's water breaking, a splitting that results in the birth of new life. And the interesting thing about that for me, with the creation and birth of our people, is that it acknowledges that there's a lot of pain in birth. This was not easy. It was not easy to have the fear of people pursuing us. It was not easy to have, in the Eitz Chaim here, they talk about, what do you do that, the horse and the driver died? Were they so guilty? And that sense of we acknowledge the loss that's connected to our birth through things like pouring out the wine, that for me is very, very powerful. The main theme here is this faith and thankfulness that we're free. And I want to hold on to that. I think especially at times when you're not feeling that, when you're witnessing something different, to hold on to that which is and was and will be. And throughout this song, we're going to see God as protector and as warrior. But I also think it's important to talk that this is poetry. It goes beyond the limits of prose to express awe and majesty of God's greatness. So that's what I think we have here. Let's just look at one line. Az Yashir Moshe. By the way, note that this is future tense. They will sing. Et hashira hazot ladonai ve'amru lemor. Ashira ladonai ki ga'o ga'a. I will sing to my God. Ki ga'o ga'a. He's glorified. Sus v'rochvo rama bayam. The horse and the horsemen have been hurled into the sea. Ozi v'zimratia v'yehili lishu'a. Ze eli, this is my God, singular. Ve'anvehu, and I'll enshrine him. Elohei aviv aromamenu, the God of my fathers, my ancestors, and I will lift him up. And for me, what this does is, in a powerful way that has reflected this Pesach, is it fuses together personal and communal. God of my father, I am connected to these ancestors who went through both slavery and redemption. But this is also a personal faith and a personal relationship. We sing because there's a God in the world with whom there is a personal, historic, communal relationship. Our own individual songs weave into a collective song. And rabbinic, this is in one of the commentaries on the side, rabbinic tradition sees this miracle as a moment where people perceived God in such real and intense ways. So it says in the Mechilta, even a maidservant at sea saw God more clearly than the greatest of the prophets. And so, hearkening back to that moment of clarity regarding God and God's presence, and for me, knowing that we've perceived God in different ways opens that door a little bit as well. Many of the commentaries did something really interesting. They said, what's the difference between Moses' song, which is 406, 408, 410? It's much longer. What is the difference between that and Miriam's song on 412? So take a quick glance at Moses' song as you're getting to 412, to Miriam's song, and you'll see that Miriam's song is Miriam, the prophetess. Aaron's sister took a timbrel in her hand. All the women went out after her and danced with timbrels, and she chanted. So she echoes Moses' prayer, Moses and the people, but there's some new things here that are different, and I think that they matter a lot. Moses' song is in the future. Az Yashir Moshe. But when you look at Miriam's song, it is in the present tense. Vata'an lahem Miriam. And might that be, and it's also plural imperative. By the way, that's important. That's important. Sing now. There's an urgency as she grabs the moment and responds to the instinct to sing. And I want us to be able to talk about the religious power of grabbing a moment. As opposed to the song that Moses led, this song includes instruments. So what does Rashi do with this? You know, how is it that the women ended up out here with drums? You know, they're leaving Egypt, they're grabbing a little matzah, they can only take a few possessions, and they grab drums. You know, do you often play like when you see people had to evacuate quickly and you say, what would I grab? A picture. I don't know how many of you would say, I would take my tambourine. They took drums. And look what Rashi did. He says, the righteous women, the tzadkaniyot of that generation, were so confident that God would do miracles for them. They brought drums with them so they could celebrate. The ability amidst a difficult time to imagine what might be, the ability to prepare for that moment. I hope I'm leaving you with a lot of things. I'm actually throwing a lot at you really quick, which is how it goes here sometimes. They brought them with them from Egypt. I like planning what might be. And then one commentary I read said that it widens the net of participants. She realized how important it was to involve everyone, all of the women. By the way, how did they know what dance to do? You know, the Women's Torah talks about this being a tradition that we lived in Egypt of teaching sacred dance and sacred music so that when those moments came, we could practice it. So think of other comparisons with the Miriam song and the Moses song. And what I also wanted to emphasize today was the power of music. I don't know that we do that enough. The Judaism I have been taught is a Judaism of head and heart, practice and ritual. The ritual of music we have to talk to. Look at what was written on the back page. Music tethers us to one another and to God. It has the power to transform something deep inside of us. It lifts the spirit and brings us to our feet, evoking passion and celebration at the shores of the sea. Music can make us feel. It expresses complex, contradictory emotions and ideas. It soothes pain with joy while adding feelings of loss or nostalgia. This is the song of the sea. It asks us to reach a place where the music of prayer amplifies our emotions and sparks new feelings. And Rabbi Sachs, as Rabbi Sachs always does, writes so eloquently. He writes, there's something profoundly spiritual about music. When language aspires to the transcendent, the soul longs to break free of the gravitational pull of the earth. What a beautiful sentence. It modulates into song. Jewish history is not so much read as sung. The rabbis enumerated 10 songs. By the way, we did one for the Haftarah and one in the Torah today. Key moments in the life of the nation. The 10th song has not yet been sung. It's the song of the Messiah. And so many texts talk about the power of music to restore the soul. Mystics go further and speak of the song of the universe. No speech, no words, voices not heard. Music carries throughout the earth, words to the end of the world. Beneath the silence, audible only to the inner ear, creation sings to the Creator. Then he writes, music has the extraordinary power to evoke emotions, talking about kol nidre, talking about chanting echa. Words without music are like body without a soul. And then he concludes with these words, faith is more like music than science. Science analyzes, music integrates. And as music connects note to note, faith connects episode to episode, life to life, age to age, in timeless melody that breaks into time. God's the composer and the librettist. We are each called to be voices in the choir, singers of God's song. Faith is the ability to hear the music beneath the noise. So music is a signal of transcendence. The history of Jewish spirit is written in song. And I need to hold on to right now that faith is the ability to hear the music beneath the noise. So I do have a few minutes before I will run next door. Any thoughts, comments, reflections on this study sheet?
I have a couple of comments, of course.
Please.
Sometimes there are no words, and
Yeah.
music speaks a deeper language.
Yeah.
But I think there's also the factor that the foundation of the story is the courage of the women.
Yes.
And I think perhaps that's why they spoke so much about the birth canal and the pain and suffering that I think women clearly understand.
Yeah, this is birth canal.
Yeah.
It's in many ways a woman's text.
Yes.
And this is about the courage to say, we're leaving and we're going to prepare for our next step. And the rest of you are kind of scurrying around. And it's really true that it's the faith of women that drives this story in deep, deep ways.
Yes, from the fact that they persisted in having children.
All of the above.
And tried to save them, and the midwives.
And Pharaoh's daughter.
Yes, and Pharaoh's daughter, and Miriam, the sister.
And Miriam, and note that Miriam is called a prophet here. Moses is not called a prophet in the book of Exodus. He's called a prophet later, but it's Miriam who is the prophet here. This is the power of Miriam. And because the poem is a little shorter, people say it might have gotten truncated. It doesn't get the same attention, but it's important. Who else has a thought, comment? Please.
Maybe the drum and the music, the songs, acts as like a signal and a way to keep the entire people together as a unit, a signal to, set the pace of the march and of the exodus. And without that, there would be just wild, marching and running and walking and no direction.
Wow.
So maybe the music helps to keep that organized.
So you're someone who knows music. The drum keeps us in cadence. The drum moves us forward, and it's counteracting to the chaos that might otherwise be. And so when you think about the drums, it may be that the drums were even more than celebrating. They understood, when we're talking about the women, a deeper piece of this, they understood the need to help bind us together in a way that words couldn't. Beautiful. What else? There's a lot here in what I gave you. Please. Oh, you didn't get one. Okay. Any other comments? Well, there we go. Thank you. We're all good.
Just a more general comment. I love that we're celebrating the music and we sing here and we have different music in the Power Hour, and our guests, the New Beginnings Church, has like a whole rock band if you're
Yeah.
ever here, and our kids are just moved by music. And then there are denominations and other groups that don't allow music at all.
Yeah.
There's no women's voices that can sing. And some fundamentalist groups don't allow music at all. And they claim to be close to God. So I just throw that out there for the contrast.
Yeah. Very much so. You know, I sometimes worry that we need even, no, I don't worry. I sometimes think we even need even more music. Because music really, really changes you. What else? What else? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Rather than having announcements and announcement spots, there will be a couple other ones. I want to call up Rana, who's going to talk about how we're trying to weave this sense of peoplehood, this sense of purpose and who we are, into some of our adult learning. And I will see everyone at Kiddush.
Good Shabbos, everybody. Good Yantif.
Shabbos, good Yontif.
I won't be long, but I did want to tie in our adult learning at CBJ, which some of you have joined us at, and others of you I hope will, to the rabbi's comments about building community and peoplehood. And as you were talking, Rabbi, I was picturing some of our classes or our lectures as a crossing of the Red Sea. You know, we go in as individuals and picture the sea and the dry path through the sea as really immersing ourselves in Torah. And Torah, I use that very, very broadly because, of course, some of our classes actually deal with Torah text and many of them deal with all kinds of other things. But when you come out on the other side, the group that you've been studying with has really merged into a small community of its own. And I certainly have found in terms of my years here that there's nothing that binds me to other folks in the community and allows me to get to know them in such an intimate way as learning together. In our, whether it's our B'nai Mitzvah class or whether it's a one-time thing or whether it's, you know, participating in our ongoing weekly courses with groups of people, there, it's, you know, you have a tie with these people that I think it's very hard to get in any other way. So with that in mind, I'll highlight, we have a lot of things. If you look outside on the table, you'll see all kinds of flyers for things that are coming up. May is a super, super busy month. Of course, we have all of our ongoing classes, which are listed every week in the Shavua Tov, taught by Rabbi Alana, taught by Bill, and various other folks. So please, you know, if you don't already avail yourselves of some of those, take a look at them. We have a series called Jewish Ethics and Modernity. This was the impetus of our young adult group, starting at the beginning of last year, where they really wanted to tackle how does Jewish ethics tie into our current professional responsibilities and world events and so on and so forth. And we have one of those coming up this coming Shabbat, a week from today, where Bill, each one of them is facilitated by a member clergy and a young adult. And they're amazing. They happen right after Kiddush in the back of the chapel. And Bill and Ilana Freeman are going to talk about how to bring joy to Jewish life. So I can't imagine that would be anything anybody would want to miss for all kinds of reasons. We have an upcoming series in May, 3-parter, called Israel at This Moment. And we're really, really, really lucky. We have, I skipped something, but I'll come back to it. We have 3 amazing speakers coming on 3 Tuesday nights, almost consecutive. There's a space. On May 6th, We have Toba Hellerstein. Some of you may have heard of Toba. She's quite well known. And she's going to talk about the war of perception. How is anti-Israel propaganda gaining ground, and how can we respond? I can't think of anything too much more relevant at the moment. On May 20th, Consul General Oliver Schramm, the Consul General of the Federal Republic of Germany, is going to be talking about healing after the Holocausts, lessons learned and acted on by Germany on behalf of Israel, the Jewish people, and the memory of millions lost. And that's coming just a little bit after we're going to be commemorating Yom HaShoah this coming couple of weeks. And on May 27th, Professor Alon Tal, who had been a member of the Knesset, the parliament in Israel, talking about confronting Israel's environmental challenges in times of war. How does Israel protect its environment amid conflict? So 3 really different topics, but all of them obviously relating to Israel at this time, at this critical time. Our annual Teitelbaum lecture, in honor of our Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Teitelbaum. We're really, really lucky this year. We have Yiska Smith. Some of you may have heard of Yiska. She's a thought leader and spiritual activist. She teaches at Pardes. She teaches at the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. And she's going to be dealing with encountering the divine presence within. So a very spiritual experience, which goes along with our kind of subcommittee of nurturing the Neshama, which Batya talked about a couple of weeks ago. And you also probably have heard, hopefully, that we have a community read going on this year in the congregation. We're all reading on our own a book called The Amen Effect by Rabbi Sharon Brous. There are copies available in the office for those of you who want to grab one. There are about a dozen copies circulating around. It's a short book. It doesn't take a long time to read, but very profound. One of the rabbi's favorites, Rabbi Ezra's favorites. And we're really lucky because on Sunday, May the 18th at 10 in the morning, we're going to do a Zoom with the author, Rabbi Sharon Brous. So in the meanwhile, Sharon Rubin, who's our chair of this, has been setting up small discussion groups for people who are interested. You can sign up on the Shavua Tov, or you can contact Sharon. The Sisterhood Book Group discussed it. The CBJ Jewish Book Group discussed it. Some of the Chavurot are getting together to discuss it. But it's going to be really fun, I think, at the end to meet with the author and hear from her herself. So lots of stuff coming. Don't pass the table without grabbing all these flyers and putting them on your fridge. Getting us all the way to Shavuot, where of course we'll start off with the first night, Erev Shavuot, with our almost all night. We keep trying to get there. We get pretty close. Study session, our Tikkun Leil Shavuot. And this year it's going to be about finding ways of peace. And that is really, I've told the rabbi that of all the places that I've lived, including New York City, where they really do it up, the study that we do on Shavuot is really unsurpassed. I think we do it pretty much better than anybody else I've ever seen. And speaking of intimacy, people share things that are just so personal and so profound that you get to know that person who's presenting in a way that you never knew him or her before. Anyway, I said I'd be brief, and I'm not being brief, so I'm going to let everybody continue with the service, and I hope to see all of you, and talk to me about adult learning at any time, any questions or any thought, input. Shabbat Shalom.
I'd like to invite Barry Wolf to come up and lead us in Musaf. Musaf is that great opportunity to revisit the teachings, to take a deep breath and go inside the soul and integrate some of this Shabbat morning experience. We begin on page 184 with the Chatzi Kaddish.
Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. Right, page 194. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
B'yama divra kirutei v'yamlech malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv v'yemaru amen. Yeheshmei Rabba Mivorach Li'alam L'mal Me'amaya Yitbarach.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לאילן מן כל בחרתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונכדתה דמירן ויאמה ויאמרו Amen.
Because it is the festival of Pesach, we turn to page 343. 343. There are some additional bits inserted for the holiday. We rise in body, we rise in spirit for the Musaf, page 343.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak,
It's not on.
Elohei Yaakov.
Here, it's just the button. Sorry, guys.
Technical difficulties.
We should be good now.
I'll start,
Maybe
yeah.
start over.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot, U'Mevi Goel Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer V'Ked Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Foked Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Metim, Atah Rav Le'Hoshia, Morid Hatav, Mechalkel Chayim B'Chesed, Mechayei Metim B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Neroflim V'Rofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umidom Elach, Melech Meimit Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lahayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hametim.
Page 345.
Naritzacha v'nakdishacha, kesod siach sarfei kodesh, hamakdishim shimcha b'kodesh, kakatuv ayad niviecha, v'karazel ze v'yamar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melech haaretz kivodo. Kivodo, malei olam, mishartav, shoalim zelazeh, Aye, mekom kivodo, Leumatam, Baruch Yomeru, Baruch Kivod Adonai Mimkomo. Mimkomo, Huifen Barachamim, Ve'yachonam, Ham Yachadim Shemo, Erev Avoker, Bechol Yom Tamid, Pa'amayim B'Ahava, Shema Omrim, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Yoshienu, Vahu Yashmienu, Yashmienu, Barachamav, Shenit, 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 Shenit Le'enei Kol Chai, Liot Lachem Le'Elohim, Adonai Elohechem,
Adir Adirenu,
Adonai, Adonenu,
Adir Shimcha bechol haaretz, V'haya Adonai lemelech kol haaretz, Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
Uvdivrei kadshecha katuv lemor, Yiloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Tzion, Dor vador, Hallelujah. Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador, Nagid Gad Lecha, Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador, Nagid Gad Lecha, Ulanetzach netzachim, Kedushatecha nakdish, Kedushatecha nakdish, Vashivchacha Eloheinu, mipinu lo yamush, Leolam, Leolam va'ed. Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador, Nagid Gad Lecha, Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador,
Ledor vador, Nagid Gad Lecha, Ki el melech gadol, gadol v'kadosh, v'kadosh, v'kadosh ata. Ya 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 la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la. Baruch ata Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please continue silently through the end.
And as you go forward from page 346, notice that there are special words for Pesach, and since it is Shabbat, you would say the words in the red brackets.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, v'yakol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. Amen.
Please turn to page 203 for Kaddish Shalem. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, b'alma divra kirote v'yamlech malchute, b'chaychon v'yumaychon, uv'chayei dechol bet Yisrael, ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'yimeru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivorach, li'alam amal me'amaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha brichu le'elam min kol bechata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiman bi'alma v'yimeru. Amen. Titkabal zoton u'avuton dechol Yisrael kadam avuhon di vishmaya v'yimeru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yakol Yoshev tevel v'yimeru. Amen. Please turn to page 204 for Ein Keloheinu. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kamoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Chadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kamoshienu. Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru, Avotenu, Lefanecha et Ketoret Asamim. Please rise for Elenu on page 205.
Time is up.
Leinu shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedola liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kikuye haratzot, velo samanu kameshbachot hadama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegora leinu kechol hamonam, vanachnu korim, Umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim v'yosed haaretz umoshe v'karo b'shamayim mima'al uschinatu zo begav hei meromim. Hu Eloheinu einod, emet malkeinu efes ulato, kakatuv b'torato, v'yadat hayom v'hashevota elevavecha. Ki Adonai hu Elohim, Bashamayim mima'al, v'al haaretz mitachat einod. Kakatuv b'toratecha, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shamo echad. You may be seated.
Mourner's Kaddish is next on page 207. Mourner's Cottage is on page 207, remembering our loved ones. This week we remember Mary Alexander, Richard Aaron, Joseph Ball, Helen Berkowitz, Joan Bornstein, Shirley Briscoe, Oliva de Rea Poole, Ilan Aiken Forderer, Irving Goldstein, Bernard Horowitz, Jack Canner, Belle Krantz, Faye Lehman, Milt Levinson, Ben Mandel, Ephraim Mason, Arnon Matitiao, Martha Meneses, Clarice Miller, Herman Miller, Ilse Rosenbaum, Robert Schlossberg, Les Sussman, Norman Weiner, and in the Shloshim, Yoshito Fukushima, father of Naomi Shalowitz. Naomi and John moved to San Francisco a few years ago, but they're still involved in our shul, and we wish them and all others who mourn comfort and blessing. Are there any names we should include at this time that weren't mentioned? Please rise for Mourner's Kaddish, page 207.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyamechon u'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'yimaru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shemei d'kedusha barechu, la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran ve'alma v'yimo amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimo amen. While you think about your tune for Adon Olam, I'll just mention Yasher Koach to Barry for leading Musaf, to Brian for chanting Haftarah and Torah, for Bill for chanting Torah, and Rana for chanting Torah. And I had the privilege of chanting an excerpt of Shir Shirim, and to Rabbi Ezri for our wonderful teaching today. In the announcement slot, something that wasn't lifted up too much was, in the coming week is Yom HaShoah, and there are two things happening at CBJ. One is on Thursday. It is during the day, 10 a.m. to 11:30, chanting of a special text related to the Shoah that's a practice more widely done in Israel than here, but we're bringing it here. Thursday, April 24 at 10 a.m., and that's available on Zoom as well as in person. So is, and Yom HaShoah, the community-wide observance, is Sunday, April 27 from 3 to 5:45. Formats have changed, but the spirit is the same. It'll be very moving and beautiful, and that does not have a Zoom component, but that begins at 3 p.m. with a memorial service and candle lighting. And the flyer looks like this if you want to take one home on the table. And now we're ready for Adon Olam. Okay, page 211, Adon Olam. Adon Olam asher malach, b'terem kol yitzir nivra, li'et nasa b'chefso kol, azai melech shemo nikra, v'yacharei kichlot hakol, levado yimloch nora, v'hu haya v'hu hoveh, v'hu yeh b'tifara, v'hu echad v'yein sheni, l'cham shilo lehachbira,
beli reshit, beli tachlit, velo ha'oz, v'hamizrah, v'hu eli, v'chai goali, v'tzur chevli, bi'etzara, v'hu nisi, umanos li, manat kosi, b'yom ekra, b'yado, avkid ruchi, v'eti shan v'ya'ira, v'im ruchi gaviati, Adonai li, v'lo ira.
You got it. We rise for Kiddush, and as you're doing so, I'd like to remind you tomorrow morning, the 8th day of Pesach, we will have services here, starting at 9 a.m. Slice an hour earlier, when it's not Shabbat, 9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll be on the patio, and our friends from NBCC Church will be using most of our building tomorrow for Easter, because it's their Easter Sunday, their regular Sunday service on Easter. So when you come in the lobby, you'll just come straight to the sukkah patio. And parking-wise, you can park on the street or in the parking lot, but you'll be surprised how many people are here. But it's all to celebrate wonderful things. So,
Okay. Al kain berach Adonai et yom hashabbat vaykadshehu.
Savri.
Savri chavrai.
And we have one thing before the Kiddush.
okay.
We are announcing the holiday. Vayidaber Moshe et Moed Adonai el bnei Yisrael.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Delicious.
Still crispy.
Shabbat shalom. Please enjoy the Kiddush lunch.
Beautifully done. Shabbat shalom on Zoom. Shabbat shalom in the room. This microphone sometimes I
Okay.
switch the mode. Instead of turning it off, I'll switch the mode.